right there. I'm still writing notes, crap. Give it a 3, 2, 1, and we're recording.
It already started. Welcome to Everyone Racers, a podcast designed for the world of low-dollar racing and oddball car culture. Whatever kind of Le Champ or track dog you run, SCCA or NASA, we won't discriminate. We even think you drifto, hella flush, hella late guys are all right, as long as you drive it hard and build it yourself. Join us each week for tech discussion, tips, tricks, news and notes in the world of low buck racing, and if you can handle it, Chrissy will give you just the tip. I'll be your pit marshal. Everyone report to the paddock.
This is Chris.
This is Chrissy.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Mental. Folks, we are Everyone Racers. Thanks for coming back to another swanky episode of our podcast. And despite our own best efforts, we have made it to episode 30. And you, faithful listener, even those not named Ventura, have made it with us, and we appreciate you coming along with us for this. So let's jump right into it.
They're the
Chrissy.
ones to blame, Mental. It's their fault.
I was going to say, I almost didn't make it to the episode, but that's besides the point.
We're happy you're here. And 30, I feel like that's like a milestone, kind of.
It really is.
It's like
seriously.
Or like round numbers. I feel like we've accomplished something by we made it to another round number. How about that?
There you go.
Okay, cool.
30 episodes. That's legit. Chrissy, what you working on?
Okay, so this weekend I got outside, which was really nice, right before the big snowstorm that we had. Actually, we got more snow than most, but I did some yard work. So on Friday, I found an issue with my car. So that's what kind of spurred the idea for this main topic, which is diagnosis, which we will get to in a little bit. But last week I found that I had a clunk in the passenger side front when I turned hard. And so we put it on the lift on Saturday, and Chris will talk more about that because he did a lot of that diagnosis. But we had an awesome Easter celebration. Chris's mom was down here for the weekend, so we hung out with her and got a good amount of stuff done and had a great dinner on Sunday. And now we're back to normal this week.
Very good, very good.
How much snow did you guys get? I literally washed the RV today. That's what I did in shorts.
We got like
about
4 or 5 inches.
Yeah.
It mostly melted by the end of the day, and by today now there's nothing left except where they
piles.
I was going to say Eastern PA, where Chris and Chrissy are, got 4 or 5 inches. Where I used to live up in North Jersey and the southern New York area, got like 8 to 10.
Get out
and it
today.
stayed around, yeah.
That was yesterday morning, Monday.
Yep.
Monday. Anyway, I guess I'll go next.
Yeah, go
ahead. As planned last week, I went to the New York Auto Show, played hooky from work.
I hope nobody hears you.
No, they knew. I caught the auto show.
Instagram.
Yes.
How many times did you lick your hands?
Technically, a lot. Technically, it was a vacation day because a holiday because we were closed for whatever that is, Good Friday. So I didn't really have to tell anybody. So anyway, I went to the New York Auto Show, had a great time. Some of the highlights include my wife walking right up to the Porsche model / person and saying, also, my husband keeps talking about how he's no longer on the list for these big Porsche books. Can you put him back on the list? Because we had moved. I hadn't got them in a long time.
Go, Jen. Well played, Jen.
Did you just look at them on the internet?
I don't know.
Shut up.
Interesting.
No.
Did you just tell me to shut up?
I did. Book's good.
Book is good, yes. Because you'd open it up and there would be like watches in it and stories of travel and things. So, and then beautiful pictures.
Just get it for the stories.
Yes, exactly. I only read the articles. I don't look at the pictures.
That you can do on the internet.
Yes, you're right.
Oh,
how did we get down here? Quick poll of the group. How many Corvettes do you think there were at the New York Auto Show? Someone throw out a number. I got 4 from Chrissy, I got 1 from Mental, and I got 2 from Chris. Mental is correct. There was exactly 1 Corvette. It was a ZR1. You couldn't get near it. It was on a spinny pedestal. And my wife was tremendously disappointed because she wanted to sit in a base model and think about trading hers in. And now she just like, I don't care. I'm not buying a Corvette because they didn't have any at the show. All right, next poll question. GM. Yeah, take that, GM.
Seriously.
Next poll question. How many Focus STs, what Jeff wanted to sit in, were there at the entire New York Auto Show? I got 0, 0, and 1, and Mental and Chris are correct.
Oh, I
0.
One picture.
It's because the Focus
had
is
it-
on its way out. It's
it's-
last model year, so they're
Yeah, they had
Exactly, and there's nothing new about it. They
There's
they
nothing new
hyped
about
it up.
it.
Yeah,
they had 1 RS and no STs.
They want to show you the every variety of starts with E, ends with
Oh, it was
ape
terrible.
kind of
Terrible.
SUV thing that you could possibly buy.
Yeah.
well, they finally have the Expedition that can fit a 4x8 sheet of plywood, which incidentally the Suburban has been able to do since its birth in 1949.
We do it.
We do it. That's one of the reasons we bought that truck. instead of
Seriously.
other
I
things.
was
was
going to say I could
Exactly.
get one in the Avalanche
8x4 because it's a Suburban
Yeah.
with a
Exactly.
with a
mullet.
bed. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that was Friday. Saturday, I completed the Heidi Hole project. Josh is now sleeping back in his room.
Is that
and
what you
has
call
a-
it?
Exactly. Has a
It looks
has
For our new listeners, that's not
That's
child
true.
abuse. That's IKEA.
Oh, it's an
Tell us more
IKEA
what it
bed
is.
with storage underneath, and the storage area underneath has a place, like a fort for kids to hide in, and it's got foam pads under it and stuff. So he goes down there and reads his books and everything.
It's where he'll keep his weed when he's in high school.
Exactly, or porn or whatever. So yeah, he's 9, so there's nothing down there yet except Mario characters. And then Sunday was Easter, so we did Easter egg hunting. That's it. End of story.
Cool.
Chris, you go next.
Well, I diagnosed and repaired Chrissy's car. The massive pothole that she unfortunately hit because tiny roads and over hills and in the dark and stuff, which sometimes it just happens, nothing you can do about it. It shifted the subframe back about a 1/4 inch, like measurements from the hub and the spindle back to the body lines. So I loosened all the bolts in the subframe, shifted the subframe back where it was supposed to be, tightened it back up, and that was good there. I also found that the inner CV joint was shot on the right side. So, hey, Rock Auto to the rescue. $46 shipped in 2 days. If you never order from Rock Auto, I find them to be quite good. And also, to get another 5% discount, go to the GRM forum, go to the Shop Talk section. In that section is a thread from Rock Auto giving you their current coupon code, which saves you 5%. So put that in the How'd You Hear About Us section. I've assembled some porch furniture, did some more flooring because there's more flooring to do.
We're getting there,
Probably
though.
70% done now, which is nice.
Nice. That is
Doing
nice.
the-
Had delicious
Front
Easter
door.
ham, and I actually worked on cars today. Like, who knew? Like this car show, and I worked on
Today?
race
a
cars.
Tuesday?
Yeah, I flex timed from work, so I'm working extra during other days, so I could take a half day today. So I fixed the axle in Chrissy's car first. Got that all done. Took about an hour. The ball joints in Mazda 3s are a pain in the ass to take off of the spindles. You end up having to take the whole control arm off, which
Yep.
on the passenger side requires undoing the motor mount, lifting the motor up enough just so you can get that long bolt out. So anyway, whatever. Replaced the axle, drove it around. The clunk is solved. Everything's fine. No problem.
Yay.
And then I took the old Honda Hero motor, the motor that has over 20,000 race miles.
How many cars? How many cars has that been in?
2 different cars.
Yes.
But I put it in my mom's Civic wagon back in 2002, where I had gotten it out of a junkyard. She daily drove it for 10 years. Then we put it in the race cars, and it had 20,000 race miles. And finally, it didn't have a whole lot of compression left. So I took that apart today to get it over the machine shop to get that built up. That's going to be our new race motor again. And frankly, that is the cleanest inside of a motor I have seen since I put the 900-mile 2.5 MZR into Chrissy's car, which you could eat off of that one. But this was almost as clean. I think it's because we constantly change the oil every race with
I was going to say.
with the diesel truck oil that's full of detergent, so it cleans it all out. It was spotless
Give him a
inside.
plug. Give him a plug. Tell everybody what we run.
Shell Rotella T6. It is
They're
amazing.
the best.
It is.
We have
It
never
is.
had an oiling related failure in any one of our cars ever. So,
And you sold me on it, and I've got it in everything I drive. And my Suburban's got 180,000 miles, and I just sold my Mercedes with 260.
Only second to Dello.
no,
I
no
love
Dello.
Dello. Dello 400, yo.
No Dello.
The best.
Just kidding. Sorry.
So yeah, that's that. That motor's super clean inside. I don't know why it was low compression in some cylinders. The bearings were looked fantastic. The rod bearings you could totally reuse. The It was a
Just
little
the
wear.
rings, right?
Yeah, with the rings, nothing was broken. There were no ring lands cracked. And that motor had been heavily turboed for a year or two. So
You think it was valve leaking its valves?
it might have been the valve. I didn't see them obviously burned, but I haven't pulled the cylinder head apart. But I have the block completely apart. I've already started doing a little bit of the machining on the oil passages and stuff that I need to do before I get it to the machine shop. So, actual race car work. How about that?
Nice.
Dope.
Mental, you said you sold the Mercedes. I didn't know that was part of the plan, but
Well, I had it. I was offering to trade it for a Miata, and
Right, yeah.
Friday, Thursday, I got a message from a woman on Facebook said, "Look, would you just sell it?" And we met on Friday, and they drove around the block and said, "Okay, we've got cash, we'll take it."
Nice.
okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, and so she was coming from an E320, and she's a little bit older, and I think she's ready for a nice car with a little bit of snot behind it, and still something she could pay cash for. And so yeah, so sold that. Ended up carless on Friday. Saturday went and picked up the new Porsche.
Very cool.
Yeah, got it home, started de-skankifying it, pulled the horrible, horrible seats out of it. The seats were even worse than I remember. And so I just put my Sparco in it, and I got to fab up a mount for the passenger Sparco. So right now I'm just driving about it effectively in a four-wheeled motorcycle because it's just me. I'm the only one that can fit in it. And so I took it to get emissions done today, and it won't pass.
Oh, no.
Oh.
And
Is
it
it
was-
running?
It
Does it have a
runs-
light on?
It does. It's got a check engine, and it was given.
Well, then you knew that.
I did, and it was given, but I had got it to go off and stay off, and it came on as I was driving to the emissions place.
No.
So, but they pulled it. And it was the same codes that they got that I got on the code reader, and it. But interestingly enough, they had to pull my gas cap off, and they were testing my gas cap, and it was failing. So I'm going to start with that one. Rock Auto to the rescue for $12. I'll have it before I get back from New Orleans.
What
And
code did you get?
I got mass airflow sensor reading and then evaporator. But reading up on it, they said that sometimes that can be caused by a bad gas cap. So we'll start with the cheapest item first, and then I'm going to spray the crap out of the mass airflow sensor with mass airflow sensor cleaner. And if that doesn't work, then we got to fork out $200 for that.
Yep. Sounds good.
Cool.
Cool.
Nice. Anything else you did, or is that with it?
Well, then, like I said, I spent the day cleaning the RV, getting ready to head down to NOLA.
You driving
You know
the RV down?
We are.
Yeah,
We're
if you
going
guys-
down early and spending a week.
If you guys end up in town, don't forget to look at crappy pawn shops for a trombone that's in terrible condition, just so we can go behind people when they're.
I
yelling
totally
and go,
forgot that. Thank you.
You're gonna have to learn 3 notes and
Yeah, that's okay.
And I could probably
if
learn
it's
them
not
on
ri-
Bourbon Street while drinking. It'll be fine.
And if it's not right, it's still you can still just slide it down, go. Brrrr,
That's
and it's
fine.
still,
Even
like,
funnier if it's wrong. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to Craigslist and do that. Yes, you're
I
absolutely.
feel like NOLA is the best place to find a not quite broken but pretty terrible trombone, or any really,
Great idea.
any really brass instrument.
So on that note, I'm going to steal just a little bit of Jeff's thunder here. We got the registrations from Lemons for the NOLA race. And I wanted to go down and just do a little quick handicap on there. The one that jumped out at me right away is that Escape Velocity Racing, which is that 64 Dodge Dart that we all saw at Barber. And it's a strong Class C car, always has been. And I think that they turbocharged it this year, didn't they?
I have no idea, but it's a slant 6, so it's going to dominate.
It's absolutely going to dominate. And then the old dudes are bringing that 65 Ranchero that is really strong. We saw that at Carolina a couple of years ago. Then we seen it at Barber. The strong. It's not going to win, but it's always going to finish. That's always a fun car.
It's
Chrissy,
very well prepared, and those guys are very nice.
They really are.
I just noticed. I think they're the only people, pretty much, that we know that Onset Tetanus is bringing 4 cars, which is great.
It's a page from the Three Pedal Mafia playbook there.
Yeah, right. They're going to be a busy group. Hopefully, they have somebody who's going to be able to run each of those cars: the 240Z, the Neon 240SX, and the Porsche 944.
I know. I'm driving one of them.
Oh, good.
So
Who knows which, but
Yeah, who knows which?
I was going to say, you
still
don't know which
muffled-
one you're doing, or do they rotate drivers around?
Both.
Oh, got it.
we do the same thing. Come on, sometimes we go into the week
Yeah.
and go, who's driving what? I don't know. We'll figure it out on Friday.
Who's suited up? Get in the car. So the one that look out at me is there's a 93 Chrysler LeBaron, and what it was is they made sure to put in there that it's the Lando edition, which to me just smells IOE.
Oh, you know what? That's got to be the one that Spank brought. So the story on this is that Spank was at some kind of county auction or something.
Yeah,
like
it was
that,
an auction, right?
and there was a green 93 LeBaron, and he put in a bid for like $40 just for fun, and he won it. So he got this $40
such a Spank thing to do.
running and driving LeBaron. So he drove it home. And he's like, all right. So he put a
Where
cage in
did he win the? I'm sorry. Where did he
at
win the
home
auction? Is
in
it
San
down?
Diego.
Okay, San Diego. I wasn't sure.
And
This
then
is the other side of the world.
So
So
he caged it. It's like just a cage, but left all like the tufted
Everything's in
leather and the Lando
Yeah.
roof.
oh, this is
and
IOE.
the wire wheel hubcaps. He left all that in it and drove it to Houston, where he drove it to that race, where they raced it at Houston, and it did fine, like way better than it should have, and he sold it to somebody. So that's got to be that one. So that's an appropriate Lemony car. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Brian,
That's a K car version, correct?
Well, it's like the
93?
later one. It's not the original K car version. It's when they modernized it a little bit. It's still a K car based, but it's the more squared
It's not
out.
so square, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger. The corners are a little more rounded. They don't all squat to the rear like the K cars, and I think it has the Mitsubishi 3-liter V6, which is
I was going to say then they moved to the Mitsubishi.
it was an
motors.
option, but I remember you couldn't swing a dead cat around a teacher's parking lot when I was in high school without smacking one of those, LeBaron convertibles. Everybody had a LeBaron.
So anybody that's thinking about what kind of car do you got for Lemons, that's a true Lemons car. Well done.
Absolutely.
It is. Brian Pollock in Property Devaluation to bring in his V8 powered BMW. And then there's that AMC Gremlin, I think it's Team Lowball, if I'm not mistaken. That's the dog themed one. You guys saw that at Barber, did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like brown fuzzy.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be as fast as it is because it's a Gremlin, but it's a Gremlin.
And I noticed the Resistance is bringing out their 1980 Honda Civic Wagon, and as a Honda Civic Wagon aficionado, I can't help but be pleased with that because it's such an old one. We haven't even seen those in years in the Northeast.
1980. Wait a minute, I am Googling.
So, but from what I've seen, they drive the absolute wheels off that thing, and like 3-wheel corners. It's way closer to stock. It's way closer to stock than it should be, and they beat up on stuff that they have no right beating up on. So well done, Resistance, with your Civic Wago van. Rock on.
Excellent.
That's not even a Wago van. That's like a wagon.
Oh no, it's an old wagon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up some interesting notes on this. So we've got 9 BMWs, 3 Escorts, 2 Probes, 3 Mustangs, 2 Camaros, but only 2 Hondas in this race,
and one of them,
which is straight.
80 Civic Wagon.
Well, and how many 944s are there? Because we know Onset is bringing or Tetanus is bringing theirs, and Steph is bringing hers, correct?
That is absolutely right. In fact, I was texting with her earlier this week because she, on Instagram, she had pictures of it at Terrace Hill in Texas where she lives. And then the next Instagram was her in a garage rebuilding it. And I'm like, don't you have a race this week? She's like, yeah. So we love Steph. She owns 2 race cars. Neither one of them have a very strong record of finishing. So
No. Or no. Then this one may not start.
What was the other one? The 311? Was it a 311? 411.
411. Yes.
Terrible choice.
Yeah, a Type 3. Yes.
Oh. Champ Car is also going on, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Champ Car. So, and sometimes teammates, friends of the show, Team Fat Crack is debuting there, and you can find them on Instagram, but they're debuting their new totally rad 90s Miami Vice themed Honda Accord, the number 969. Now, Dustin, their team principal, is actually not going to be there, and it's his car. His dad just spent the whole week painting it because he's in Texas for military training. Also, John Artman in his moldy, never start racing Dodge Omni that I raced at VAR last year.
Or Neon, but
Neon.
Sorry, Neon.
It would be cooler if it were an Omni, actually.
It was.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dodge Neon. And then, but the big thing is Hong North is running out with the Trans Am. They're multiple SCCA and Lemons, one of the first Lemons national champion cars. So they're running out there with the Trans Am. It's a 1994 MX3. And we remember seeing this thing last year at the WRL race at Road Atlanta. And Hong North is always a strong team.
They had it at Lemons Road Atlanta too. They I don't know how they get that thing so fast, but good for them.
They've had it now for like 8 years. It was originally 2 different ones, and one of them got cracked up so bad they cut the other one up to fix it. So, but what was interesting, so I was poking through the Champ Car race, and it's Champ Cars. So there's a lot of BMWs, a lot of Mazdas, Mustangs, a couple of 944s. But I found if you go to deadpedalracing.com, and now granted this website hasn't been updated in like 4 years, and I emailed them off of it. I don't even know if they still do, but they are running a Maserati bi-turbo, a 1987 Maserati bi-turbo, and it's a family team, couple of brothers and their spouses, and I'm waiting for them to get back to us, but we all have to agree, a Maserati bi-turbo is our kind of stupid.
Absolutely. Good for them.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that they'll be there.
And so one of the guys, his wife runs on the team, which transitions lovely into Chrissy's news and notes.
Yeah, so I found a great story about there are a bunch of awesome women in motorsports. I was wondering if anybody realized that other than Danica. Everybody, that's what they talk about. There are other cool people out there. So
Mika Duna, my girl.
Okay, so there is one of them, Pippa Mann, who's going to be competing in the Indianapolis 500. I follow her on Facebook, so that's really how I found this story. There's also an IMSA champion, Christina Nielsen, and she's has a confirmed Le Mans ride. This is her third start at 26. She's 26.
Yeah, we're all failures.
That's amazing.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, silly me getting a job, going to college. What was I thinking?
Sure. But
how's that degree in radio and television working out for you?
Not at all. Not at all.
It's about women.
Hey, Jeff, how's the Citron paperwork?
I'm sorry. This is a women in motorsports. This is important. All right. So Christina is going to be driving for Porsche, and there's a bunch more, but I just had to limit it. There's Aurora Stratus. She's going to delay her Harvard admission to race in IMSA Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge, and she's racing I think she did race the Pirelli World Challenge Circuits of the Americas. I think that was last weekend. So I was excited to see some notable women that are doing awesome things, and hopefully someday there'll be too many women to talk about them because there are just going to be so many we can't figure out who to talk about.
And women or not, she's delaying her Harvard admission to take a professional seat. So yeah, I feel like a loser.
Yeah.
Yep. Once again, loser.
Once again.
Sorry, not sorry, but it's nice to see some women in motorsports.
It
doing
is.
things.
Speaking of women, Chrissy, I changed this at the last minute if you wanted to take this.
Okay. There is a Extreme Experience has some lady racer drivers, instructors, and Holly Heiser of Grid Life and Kristen Traeger, 2013 PCA National Champion. So there's plenty of women at the Extreme Experience, but tell us more about that.
Exactly. See, Extreme Experience puts you in the driver's seat of some of the world's best supercars at over 20 racetracks coast to coast, with no speed limits, no shifting restrictions, and no governors. Head to xxspeed.com to choose your supercar, find a racetrack near you, including our upcoming event in Atlanta Motorsports Park, where I, Mental Ward, will be instructing, and start making a story of your own. 7 exotic cars to choose from, 20-plus tracks, including a year-round location where, that's right, New Orleans, Louisiana, where I'm going to be this week with a 3,200-foot straightaway. Go say hi to Alex. He's a fantastic instructor. You also have professional instructors like me, Jeff, or Chris in the car with you that will help you explore the car's limits and learn how to drive the racing line. Save 25% when you head over to XX Speed and enter the code EveryoneRacers, all one word, EveryoneRacers at xxspeed.com to book today, because Extreme Experience, it's your turn.
Nice.
You know who's another female driver? Chrissy's mom.
Oh. Oh.
She drives a Mazda 5, and it's awesome.
Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, her Mazda 5 is pretty sweet. It's got Coney FSDs and Continental tires, and of course, we had nothing to do with that.
Because she is a woman of discriminating taste.
Mental, is Holly Holly from Extreme Experience? Is she really short?
Yes, she is vertically challenged.
Yeah, she was.
Lightweight.
She was. Yeah, no. She was. I actually instructed with her at, I think it was Summit Point, and she did not get out of the 911 all day. I was like, damn.
If she gets in the Gallardo because she's so short, she gets sick because she can't see over the dash.
That's a shame.
Well,
and it's funny too. she's got mom voice, and we always put like the big tough guys are like, oh, I'm going to show this girl how to drive. And she'll like, hey, I need you to brake right here. And then she'll turn when they don't do it. She'll use mom voice. And I don't care how big and tough they are. Immediately they just, yes, ma'am, I'm so sorry. And honestly, and Holly can drive the wheels off damn near anything. She's a phenomenal driver.
Excellent. So do we have any listener feedback?
Yeah. Oh, yes, we do.
Thing,
I'll
but I don't
let
see
somebody
anything.
else take this one. But yes, we had some snarky listener feedback.
Well,
this
Mental,
week.
you're the really only one that truly experienced the listener feedback. So why don't you tell us about what it was? It really was a lovely gift.
So I'm poking through my mailbox, waiting for all my cheapo Chinese bobber parts and Porsche parts and all the other parts that I've got, Rock Auto parts coming through there. And I open a box and I notice it's from an Amazon shipper, and I'm not really paying attention until I open it. And yes, Kreger sent me a box of Twinkies, which goes all the way back to our barber episode where Kurt and Craig suggested that I should have a Twinkie in my mouth during a show.
I listened to last week's show, and I think I deserved a Twinkie. I was like off the chain. I wasn't drinking either. I mean, that's usually
That would have been a better excuse.
Because it would have helped.
Anyway.
And she's right there on the screen, Jeff. It's Chrissy. When it's her turn, you let her speak.
All right. So
Twice
as
last week.
mental, I know, I'm so sorry. As mental backs away from the mic, let's get to the main topic. Our main topic tonight is diagnostic work on your car. So almost every issue in endurance racing comes down to one or two factors: human error or mechanical failure. I cannot help you on your human error. You're going to have to ask Chris on that one. But mechanical failure, we're here to work on this week. Despite your clear delineation, it's easy to cross the two and blame the human error or on the mechanical failure, or attribute mechanical failure to a human issue, right? We are hoping to do this episode is give you a set of cognitive strategies for assessing what is actually going on in both your team and your car, so you can help keep the car on track longer. Because as we know, the only way to win an endurance race is to keep turning laps. So
we're all nodding as he says that.
Yeah, so keep your team running smoothly and avoid costly issue that will sideline your car, or more importantly, you for the weekend or even a season. Because if you're sitting in the paddock, everyone else is going a lot faster than you are.
Yes, I think we'll keep this primarily focused on endurance racing diagnostics as opposed to just street car diagnostics. But so the first thing we try to do is don't necessarily stop unless it seems unsafe to keep going. Like, certainly, if something seems unsafe, stop and check it out. That's the right answer. But if it's a new symptom that's coming on, something that's still safe, radio into the paddock and talk to people about it. Try to do some diagnostics on the fly. This really is important because if you just come in, you can't go try anything new to try to narrow it down. Like, without having to suit up, go back out, get checked again, pull on your straps, do a lap, and
by then you're not in contention if you were trying to win for something.
So have the driver try different things. Like you can say, all right, try a different speed, try a different gear, different braking points, whatever you want to find out. That's the way to help narrow it down, so that by the time you actually have to bring it in, if you need to, you have a much better idea of what the problem is. Like, we did this at Road Atlanta when Jeff was having problems with the car cutting out. We had him try all kinds of things to try to narrow it down to what the problem was. And when he got in, we were pretty sure of one of two or three things, and it didn't turn out to be any of those things, but we got closer. So,
tried.
Right.
I'm actually going to talk about that and we get to my section.
Good.
So
good.
Yeah.
So I won't do any more on that then.
But I will say on this one, you called out. I called in and I said, "Is doing this," and you said, "Yeah," and stay out there. So we live by this mantra. Exactly what Chris is saying. He's not bullcrapping here.
Yeah. If you can still run, even if you're running 80%, you're still turning laps and you're still doing all right. So it's while we keep figuring out what it is. Like, otherwise, if I just come in and I'm just going to stare at it. So you might as well keep going.
And there are some things that won't sideline the car. I was thinking about when we were running for the C-Win and the boat, and we only had one gear because we didn't have a clutch.
Yeah.
You know, we knew it was the clutch pedal. We knew it was the slave cylinder or the master cylinder. We knew it was the clutch hydraulics. But staying in one gear, this is at Summit Point, we kept turning laps all day because it was keeping us competitive.
We did like 6 hours that day with no clutch. And I think our lap times only dropped 2 seconds from when it was fully operational. So that goes to show you something.
Well, and that falls into a little bit because I spammed the interwebs with this topic, and also Craig, who sent me the Twinkies, one of his responses was, we always perform diagnosis by ear. Whatever whines the loudest gets addressed. So mostly we just yell at the driver.
That's good. Excellent. Another thing, is it actually a problem what the driver's complaining about? Because sometimes the driver can be complaining about something that's totally not a problem. Like the boat used to pop pretty loudly on the overrun, once the fuel, because it had that terrible throttle body injection. So it would still dump gas down the throat of the engine when you were off the gas. So it would get into the exhaust and it would hit the manifold and it would ignite in the manifold and pop really loudly. Some people called it backfiring. It's not backfiring.
We called it intimidation.
Yeah, backfiring is when it explodes up through the top of the motor, and that's very different. This is just extra fuel popping on the overrun. But I've had a number of people radio that in, saying that what it was. I've said no, it's fine. We know what it is. Keep going. So after that, start with the common problems that you have or you're gonna have again, and then just narrow it down. Like Hondas, you think distributors. That's where I always go for any ignition-related parts, because that's probably what it's going to be, for example. And try to think through your symptoms, too, because just one thing having a problem doesn't mean that's the problem. Like the example is we had an issue with the soft brake pedal on the Civic. It was only sometimes, though. It wasn't all the time. It was just like you'd come into certain corners, and 3 or 4 corners a lap, you'd have this consistently soft brake pedal. But once you got through the softness, it was fine. We tried bleeding the brakes. I think I replaced the master cylinder. We tried all kinds of things. You know what it turned out being? A wheel bearing. Wheel bearing just starting to go, and it was walking the pads back. And so that way, if you were in the right spot to give it the time and speed to walk the pads back enough, you had to that softness was compressing that piston back in to get good pedal. So don't walk all the way through the symptoms of what's happening and why it might be doing that. And sometimes it gets really frustrating. Stop. Take a break. That's okay. Like, you need to clear your head out. Talk through it with someone else. Even if they've kind of been there with you, start from scratch. Talk through it again. And don't be afraid to ask for help if you're out of ideas. Mental.
And verbalizing is key, because sometimes you're just saying it out loud. You're working a different part of your brain and the logic processes, especially if you're frustrated and you want to get out of a rut. So if you're sitting there listening to someone walk through the problem that you've already walked through 100 times, don't get angry. Let them verbalize and walk through it, and verbalize it with them, because sometimes it's one of those, just a different set of eyes finds the answer that you've been staring at.
Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid to, when you get someone new on it who's good and you trust, walk through it with them again. Like, do all the steps you just did. Like, touch every hose, touch the wire, look at the spots with a flashlight. Do it all again with a second set of eyes, just to make sure you didn't miss it the first time, because that it's easy to do. And really, if you're out of ideas, you need someone else. Like we did this at New Hampshire. I didn't know what was wrong with it.
I love this story.
Right? And so I said, Jeff, I said I was so upset. I said to Jeff, "There's nobody in this."
Happening, so that way people can understand.
Yeah, it was running really poorly, and we couldn't figure out why. It kept blowing it kept pressurizing the cooling system. And I just replaced the head gasket. It wasn't that. We didn't find anything else wrong with it. So I said, Jeff, nobody in this paddock knows this motor better than I do, but go find Manny from Grover, because Manny's an amazing mechanic and diagnostician, and he just knows everything. So if anybody can figure out something general, it's Manny. So Jeff goes and finds Manny. He's staring at it. He's poking things. He's checking straightness. He's doing all kinds of stuff. And all of a sudden he says, "Where's dowel pins?" I said, "Oh."
What does that mean? Can you give a little bit of
sure.
background about
a dowel
what it
pin is when the cylinder head goes on the block, these dowel pins are these thin little, like, bits of tubing that sit in a recess in the block, and then the head sits on those, and that keeps it perfectly in place. Certainly the head bolts clamp it down, but these dowel pins help to locate it in exactly the right place, and somehow I had forgotten to put those in, and I had no idea.
Your shelf holders on your IKEA bookshelf, that's what dowel pins are.
Yeah, but not in the motor. They're smaller in the motor.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're round. They have a hole in the middle. They're not solid.
Yeah, they're
like the
open.
ones in the IKEA.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Manny figured that out. I was staring at this thing. I didn't know what I was doing, but enough time, and he came up with the idea that I couldn't come up with. So, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Excellent. Chrissy, you got something? You're next. I think.
So my thoughts were first when we trying to talk about this subject. My first answer is don't freak. So I feel like sometimes something happens to the car and you're driving along and everything's fine and you're thinking about it, many other things, and all of a sudden something goes wrong. And I feel like my heart skips a beat. And I say, okay, what was that? Was it just me? Did I shift wrong? Did I do something differently? Did I, run over something? Is it in the car? Is it out of the car? All that. So my first thought is that sometimes you listen. First, you have to start with listening for it to happen again, or feel it for happening again. And if something's wrong, chances are it will happen again. And then I usually try to replicate it. Do what I did. Think about what I did, and how do I make that happen again? And try to gather as much information as you can. So I thought about this from the different perspective of not doing the diagnosis, but trying to help somebody else do the diagnosis and help them. So if you're the driver, and especially if the car isn't yours, so if you're a arrive and drive, or you're just you're not Chris, you're not the pro, you're going to look at things and think about things just a little bit differently. So make sure you ask. I usually try to gather as much information as I can. Then I ask. But the whole idea is you don't get frustrated and bear with the person on the other end to try to get them as much information. So you're trying to tell them what's wrong and give it, and using a certain words of whatever you can come up with. So don't you get frustrated, but also to try to answer any of the silly questions that may come from the person on the other line. I mean, I feel like I'm talking on the phone here. But if hopefully you have radios and you're talking on your radio to your team.
When you're dealing with tech support.
Yes, my tech support call. Hello, is this Chris? I'll leave you a great review after we're done our call today. So when I call in, we try to say, hey, I have this issue. It's done it a few times. And then he says, hey, turn left.
So keep driving.
Yes, right. But
suck it up.
We're eating ice cream. I don't want you to come in right now.
Right? That might happen too. But dealing with the other person on the other line, trying to make sure that you are giving them as much information, but they're going to ask you to do silly things, and try to be somewhat patient. Unless it's a big issue. Go ahead. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, don't necessarily keep just saying the same things over and over, because if you keep saying the same things over and over, and I'm not, or the person on the other end of the line in the radio is trying to help you, is not getting it, try to find a different way to say it. Because you might not be describing it in a way that their ears hear the way you want it to hear. So try something different.
Yeah, I like it.
This is where Jeff makes noises into the radio. It's going like ee, but not like ee, like ee. And they all go, shut up. We're eating ice cream. Keep driving.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mental.
Well, so my first day of school, I had a homeroom, and this girl comes in and goes, hey, do you have that thing that I need for that stuff? That was an exact quote from a junior in high school, and I looked at her and said, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I have this conversation every day with a college student.
And said the same thing louder and slower. That thing.
That's an American. Someone doesn't understand you. You just go louder.
So 20 minutes later, she's talking about the parental consent for the lab work they'll have to be doing for their biology classes. And when we finally figured that out, she goes, but you know what I meant, right? No, I didn't know what you meant. So go to the basics. Go to either time, geography, or you're just a location. So it's doing this in turn 3. Jeff makes jokes about making noises, but that actually helps. Okay, not a ee, but a pop, pop, pop. And I think, Chrissy, you did the same thing at Road Atlanta. You know, like,
Yes,
well, it's not this noise. And you made the noise.
That's what it was doing.
And you said it's not a backfire, blah blah blah, but it's this kind of blah blah blah. And instantly we all knew what you were talking about, and I could see Jeff and Chris, the wheels start turning. So if you're having trouble coming up with a new phrase, with a new description, go to time, geography, or just some sort of function of that, and that'll break you out of that mindset of repeating the same thing over and over.
Play charades.
I'd just like to mention that literally once a week, twice a week, I get an email from a college student with no name on it. It doesn't say like, "Hi, Jeff, this is Fred." It just says, "Hi, I need the thing for the event next week." And I go,
Really?
"Who the hell are you?" I literally reply, "Who are you? What are you talking about? Send." But anyway.
All right, Jeff, go. It's your turn.
All right, I'm going to go. So Chris already mentioned, like, don't forget the basics, take a moment, step back, phone a friend. These are all kinds of things I'm going to talk about.
That's what I just did. I tech support.
Exactly. But I'm going to talk about 3 quick times when just the car would not run. And we had to go through the diagnostic principle, and each one is going to show something that we either did right or we did wrong. So when a car does not run, fuel or spark is the mantra. Does it have fuel? Does it have spark? That is the basic thing that everyone understands. And I'm going to tell you, when you're on the racetrack, you're going to commonly get it wrong. How many times has Chris called in and said, "We're running out of gas"? Or someone has called and said, "We're running out of gas." We're like,
it's usually
"No,
me,
there's
because I
plenty
use
of
too much
gas."
gas.
It's usually you. Yeah, I know. I blamed you, but it is usually you. And we go, "There's no freaking way it's out of gas."
No.
It's
How much do we put
usually-
in? What do we do?
We do the math and we're like, "No, it's not out of gas." But like, I'm just telling you that you're going to get this wrong from behind the driver's seat. You're going to think it's fuel, it's probably spark, or you're going to think it's spark and it's probably fuel. So here are the 3 times. And racing will typically bring up the oddest failures. The first one's not a race story, but way back when, 150,000 years ago, when we were still. Oh,
Seriously,
thank you.
Mental?
It's nice of you to throw those ice cubes in from across the room. I'm amazed you made the shot, though.
It was great how it bounced
I
right
learned
up
that
the
on
mic.
NPR.
We know you're making a new drink, but,
So you're all going to roll your eyes. Yes, I had a turquoise Eagle Talon TSI all-wheel drive, and I went out one day, streetcar,
It's
turned
still
the
your
key.
handle on GRM board,
It is.
isn't it?
I turned the key and just absolutely nothing. Like, car does not run. You do everything on the list. You check the fuel. You check the spark. I literally had to take it to someone and say, I give up. One of the few times I've ever been able to take it to a professional. He traced every single wire and literally found the wire between the ECU and the crank position sensor was broken, and he literally had to send a signal down every wire to find that. So some of the weirdest things happened. This was a rally car, so it was definitely beat. Definitely a problem. Some of the weird things you're never going to think of, even though when you get back to it, it was fuel or spark, because it wasn't sparking, because it wasn't firing the distributor. Go ahead, Mental.
This goes to what Chris and Chrissy were saying about phone a friend. If you remember before we blew up the Datsun truck down in CMP, we were having carb issues. And my friend had basically put a Weber carburetor on that manifold for me, and we were having carb issues, and I texted him, and he literally said, "Go find the coolest VW in the parking lot and ask that guy." And we found that van, that Type 4 van that was just slammed. It looked awesome. We walked up and said, "Whose is this?" And it was a guy named Matt. And he's like, "It's mine." I'm like, "So you know Weber carburetors?" "Yeah." And it took him 30 seconds. He walked over and he pulled the screw out of the bottom of this Weber and went, "Yeah, clean this." And it ran right up until I blew it up. It was great.
Yeah.
Well, where I'm actually
so well, in fact, that we blew it up.
I'm actually going to tell a story in a minute about some Weber carburetors, but before we get there,
Carburetors. Let's look at
carburetors. We're going to talk about the Honda. We talked about the Honda. We talked about it not running right. We already talked about on this show, but Chris and I and several others in the paddock, including that guy with that crazy accent.
Yeah. We love that guy.
Sat there at Road Atlanta, and we knew it wasn't running, and we were doing every single thing. We were doing everything diagnostically correct. We checked every item. We checked everything. We ran it from front to back through the electrical diagram, and we eventually found the one broken wire again.
You guys both had to take a break and walk around and look at other people's
Absolutely.
cars.
We did that.
Because y'all were getting frustrated.
The frustration was high. Not the highest. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But we did the proper decision tree. We followed the book. Even though Chris has built that motor 100 times, he literally pulled the book out and said, Jeff, follow the book, because I know I'm making judgment calls when we should be doing it methodically. And it was the methodicalness of that diagnostic that made it happen. Okay, Chris, you're nodding.
National champions.
We checked every single wire, every single connector with the voltmeter, and all of them were okay because they had enough signal, but they didn't have enough current throughput to actually run anything, and that was really ended up being the problem. And
Is that before or after the blub 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 blub?
That was the cause for the blub blub blub.
That was the cause of the blub.
And
It was really awesome going around the track like that. I was like, sorry about that.
So anyway, and then the last thing I'm going to end with is sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. The Citroën would not run, and we fought that thing forever. I have entire races where all I did was stare at and mess with the Weber car. Nothing about them. Chris said, learn these, and I learned. All right.
You should have been smoking a Gallus and wearing a beret. These carburetors.
And Mental, you're gonna know this because I see what your notes are. But because it was the problem, the thing that I didn't know the most about, I kept attacking the carburetors. We all kept attacking the carburetors. We all kept attacking the electrical system because we thought it was electrical, and the frustration was high. I had run the race car into Chris's truck. There was entire races I lost just sitting at that thing. And I literally stared at the fender and I said, I swear to God, I don't know why, but this thing doesn't have fuel. And we later discovered that it was, in fact, clogged fuel lines. But we had assumed that the tank was clean because we heard the tank was cleaned. So, Mental is going to talk about attribution bias and confirmation bias, and it's exactly what we did to Citroën. And if I'd have just followed my gut, we would have found it.
We said, no, it's not the fuel.
Yeah.
It's never the fuel.
Not the fuel. And I'm like, I literally said, God, goodness, curse words I can't say on the podcast. I don't know what the blickety blank is wrong with this thing. But I swear to God, it doesn't have fuel, and that turned out to be it. So
you were swearing like a Frenchman with an Italian engine, basically. Is what it was.
So my thing is follow the chart, don't make assumptions, follow your gut, and sometimes you're never going to find it, and don't let it ruin your life. Bam! That's the end of my section.
Bam.
You almost dropped your mic, except that it's on a stand, so it's hard to do.
You had to throw it off the desk.
I can do that.
No. See, there's going to be a wire now that he needs that he just broke. All right. So, Chrissy, I think we just lost you on video, so just jump in if you've got something to add to this. Now, I am the least mechanical of this quartet, so I'm not going to talk so much about actual troubleshooting because usually I'm the guy that breaks the car. I could, if you tell me to replace a part, I can do that, or I usually know what end of a wrench to use. But I do understand about thinking and problem solving. So what I came up with is we were talking about when Chrissy came up with this topic, immediately I jumped on the show notes and vomited all this onto the page. So there's actually about 14 or 15 known biases. We're going to break this down to 5 as they relate to racing. But if you've got a bias that has showed its ugly head in one of your events, throw it up on our Facebook page, email us at everyone.racers@gmail.com or Instagram or Twitter, all that kind of stuff. We do want to hear from you guys on this one. So now the first one is attribution bias, and I am king of this one. But what it comes down to is when we do something well, we tend to think that is because we're just that damn good.
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah, it is. It's our own merit and personality. And when we do something wrong, we want to think that it's external factors. Oh, the car wasn't set up correctly. And the story that keeps popping into my head is when Chris and Chrissy, when you guys were judging a lemons race, and the one team kept coming in, every new driver kept coming in, and they're like, oh, it's our tires. And finally you said, okay, I want you to put the car on jack stands, take your tires, and go sit in the stands until you look at every other race car that comes by, because their tires are all behaving correctly, and you and your tires can talk. But it is so I have to actively verbally correct myself when I catch this happening to this. And what I've found is that I'm a lot happier if I start the problem solving with my failures. So when it's my fault, what I have to look at is it is a procedure problem or an adherence problem. And by a procedure problem is in that checklist, in that the going down the troubleshooting guide, is there something in there that was missed? And if so, that's a chance to revise your procedure and update your checklist and make it better and safer and more effective. Or is it an adherence problem, like you were talking about with the carburetors on the Citron, is you were skipping a step because your gut told you it was fuel, the checklist told you it was fuel, but it can't be fuel, so you just weren't adhering to the checklist.
No, we had
right?
no checklist at all.
Yeah,
There's no manual for a 72 Citroen with 12 different things.
There is. Fuel, spark, compression.
If you cannot figure it out, then you go and sit and eat a baguette. Eat a baguette and drink some wine.
Very well. Then go and have a nap. Then
Basically.
But you know it's fuel, spark, and compression. And if you've eliminated those other two, so we tend to do that. But look at that as an opportunity to improve. So don't be afraid to hurt your ego on that one. And one of my favorite quotes is General Bruce Clark, who said, when things go wrong in your command, start looking for the reason in ever-increasing concentric circles around your own desk. And that worked for me in the military, and it's worked for me in racing. Now, the second aspect of this is confirmation bias. And what it is you tend to start looking for evidence of what you think is happening. And this is exactly what happened to the Datsun truck. Chris told me to build an oil pan baffle. I built a imitation simile.
You did
what
terrible. That was wrong.
An oil pan baffle. And the oil pressure gauge was telling us. Go ahead, no, Chris, jump in.
You put something in the oil pan. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a baffle. Like if you had gone to the extensive research necessary to Google oil pan baffle, you would have realized it was wrong. But I know that's a lot of work. Sorry.
Exactly. And so there's the gauge telling us what is happening to the engine, and I'm arguing with it, going, no, I fixed it. The gauge has to be wrong. It's a gauge. It can't.
The gauge must be wrong.
Gauge, you have one job, Gauge. Why are you so bad?
One job. And everybody's laughing at me, but all of our listeners, someone has argued with a gauge, said that the gauge is wrong, and they've done it to their own detriment. I almost guarantee that one.
Always trust the gauges, even when Omar's reading them.
We want to believe because we look for what it is there, and I'll leave you to the political feed on your Facebook spectrum to decide whether or not people do this on that. Now, the next one is mental set, and no pun intended on this one, but it's a framework or a strategy that you use to approach a problem. Now, this is a good thing because usually it's what you've used to solve the problem in the past. But the problem is you get problems that fall outside of that skill set, then it's not going to work. So it's good for working through a straightforward problem, but a wrong mental set is going to hamper your ability to find the correct solution. So don't be afraid to start thinking differently. Now, another one on this is functional fitness, and it's considered a form of the mental set. And that is stepping outside the box and finding new and novel uses for objects beyond its typical use. Actually, Lemons racers are pretty good about this, particularly like Knox Vegas. They will do stuff that isn't supposed to work, and it does. And what was it? Eric Rude was talking about the Geo, the metronome.
Metronome, yep.
16 different cars because they just find stuff that works, and that works really, really good. And then finally, the last thing is the unnecessary constraints. And these are unwarranted assumptions that we make about a problem that could limit creative thinking. And the key to find out if you're doing this or someone in your team's doing this, if they go, oh, we can't do that, and you look at them and say, why? Well, we just can't. If it's not in the rules or it's not in the safety manual someplace, you absolutely can do it. And why not give it a shot, right? So those are just, make sure that you're aware of your own biases. Take that walk, take a breather, do what you got to do. Go have a Coke and look at somebody else's problem and let those background processors work on your own problem. And I think most of the times you'll find that you'll come at it with a fresh mind, which leads us into, I believe, everyone, or Chris, or Jeff, you've got something.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think every single one of us touched on the same point, and it's don't rely just on what you're doing and what you're thinking. You need to expand your either your mental ability or your ability or phone a friend, and really that's all about teamwork. And that's why you got to create a great team around you who can pull you aside and say, "Hey, Chris, yes, we can fix this wheel bearing," or "Hey, Mental, I just checked and you put the tires on that were absolutely corded," or,
that never happened.
All these are true stories.
Those true stories. True stories. And sometimes you need an expert to just go, come in and look at this. So phone a friend. I guess that kind of finishes our topic. Unless anyone else has got anything, we'll move on to our favorite portion. If everyone's ready.
Yep.
Can't see if she's ready because her video's off.
I'm ready.
Just the say it, John.
Oh,
Tip.
There it is. Just a tip.
Thanks, Josh.
9-year-old loves just the tip.
Oh, stop it. That's terrible. Okay,
It's his
so
favorite segment.
I'm logging off.
so we've said this came about trying to think about how when you're really frustrated and you're talking and walking around, we decided that keeping your keeping your workspace clean and safe. That's what we're going to talk about today. So kind of spurred by when you're running around and it's crazy, how you're going to diagnose this problem with a messy space. So it's easy to get focused and frustrated, and then your space is messy, but your space might have already been messy. So let's address this first, really. So if you started that way, let's clean it before you start. Because if you have a workbench, maybe you just want to start with a clean slate, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So if you're going to be using all the tools in this project, you think it might be easier just leave them out, but it's going to be more satisfying to use clean ones, I think. But also having the tools where they should be is going to help you a lot, because
Where's
then
my
you
10mm socket.
Yep.
In orbit with the rest of them.
Well, when you yell about where is it, then you are going to Mental. What are you doing?
I have two things when you have a chance.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
You will wait.
Yeah, you will. I'm just trying to figure out why all these fingers in the air.
Where's your Twinkie?
Okay. Where is your Twinkie? Okay, so you don't want to yell, "Where's my tools?" When they're not in the place that they should be. Okay, so then let's look at the floor. We want to make sure, what are you going to trip over that's on the floor? And you're going to be happy that you move things out of the way. When you're running around, you're trying to put out a fire, or you can't find the bolt and your hand is stuck in the engine bay and you're trying to run past something. Just pick up stuff off the floor. And lastly, an interesting concept would be to get your, if you have a teammate who may not be as familiar with your garage, get them to clean and to put the tools away, because then they're going to get to know where your stuff is, and then they'll be able to help you when you yell, "Where's my 10mm wrench?" It will be somewhere closer, hopefully, than in orbit or somewhere where everybody thought it might be.
Yeah.
It will be.
That sound you hear is Mental actually eating a Twinkie on the air.
Yeah, which is why I'll take this moment to say it's also a great way to have one of your teammates who is not necessarily the best wrench, like that's not their forte. That's okay. They can be the one to help and look around and make sure there's not the thing you're going to trip over right behind you. You're not going to step in that oil pan that's going to ruin your day.
I step in the oil pan all the time. That's
like that's a great thing for someone else to be. That way they can be involved in the repair and what you're doing right now and be a good rounded teammate, and just let you do your thing too. So everyone can pitch in and help make sure you're in a safe, clean workspace. So Mental, it keeps you until you swallow there. Okay, good.
So two things. One, in 2009, the first time we all raced the Wartburg, I knew we were going to get along because Eric was doing work on the head on the Subaru motor. And all three of us decided that Eric, who we love dearly, but Eric is a tornado and he just leaves things where they land. And we were all organizing the tools on the trailer, and we kind of all fell into the same mindset of, okay, we're going to put these here. And I remember we each looked at each other and go, "This is driving me crazy," because they're just everywhere. And we just fell into the role of handing Eric tools. the second part of this is when I was up there picking up the Half Magic Janky trailer, is I was able to find everything in Chris and Chrissy's garage because everything is labeled. And then I put it all back where it went because everything was labeled. So I had no problems finding tools in Chris. In fact, I texted you some questions about how to set up the thing, but I don't think I ever texted you, where do I find this tool? Because It was all kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Occasionally something's too big for a drawer and we put it in a different drawer.
Yeah, well, because we have enough people working here that might not be quite as intimately familiar, so it's nice that when they ask where something is, they say, well, just look at the labels.
Yeah.
Heck, I definitely go to the drawer and open and look at the labels first. So there's that.
Yes. Excellent. I'm a big fan of creating, when people are guest wrenching, like creating, here are the tools, here's a board, and I'm going to lay out everything we think we're going to need.
On sawhorses.
On sawhorses in the middle of things. So that way you don't have to walk so far and you can kind of visually see everything. And that always works out for me because I am an unorganized mess. I wish I had the ability that Chris and Chrissy have to keep everything straight.
But you do a good job when you
Absolutely.
set up for. Yeah, it's good.
Absolutely. Anything else on safety or just the tip and keep your stuff clean? I'll just mention that we have worked in some absolutely disgusting environments. We built the Wartburg in something that rivals like Sasha's pit on how disgusting it can be, and it definitely helps when you can find
Sasha's
stuff.
not disgusting. He's just scattered.
It's all scattered. When you drop a tool and it just hits other tools and doesn't hit the ground, that's a problem.
Or a water bottle, or a half-eaten sandwich, or lamb kebab. Actually, that's really
Jeff, I see the speaker in your hand, but there's some stuff on that notes you need to read before you.
Absolutely. You mean before we hit the outro part?
Exactly.
Yes, before we hit the outro, I'd like to mention, come back next week, download us, we're going to discuss our most favorite and least favorite tracks. We're going to talk about our favorite paddocks, our least favorite paddocks. I'm sure we're going to talk about stories of disgusting showers, interesting sculptures, deer strikes. These are all things that are bound to happen and be discussed next week. But I want to invite all the listeners, all dozens of you, to hit us up on our social media or email at everyone.racers@gmail.com and tell us about your favorite things or your least favorite things at all of the tracks you have been to. Chris and Chrissy have been around everywhere. Mental has been around a lot of places that in the Southeast and everywhere. Midwest too. I'm pretty much an East Coast guy, so I don't have any knowledge of all those California tracks. So if there's something out there that you need to tell us about, hit us up, everyone.racers@gmail.com. And now we're going to move on to the outro. Thank you for downloading us. We hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Everyone Racers. We also hope you'll join us in the world of driving, racing, and building, because everyone can be a racer, even you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe with the button on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. If there's any questions or you want to give us some show ideas, drop us a comment on our Facebook page, Everyone Racers. If you'd rather not venture into the void that is the Book of Faces, drop us an email at everyone.racers@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram or Twitter at everyone.racers. Thank you again. These have been your plugs. Join us next week. Keep the shiny side up, unless you don't have a shiny side or you're eating Twinkies. Just keep the wheels down.